it started with an idea to have my dog in a movie. And it's transformed dramatically from there into this cute little idea to have my dog in a film to something genuinely world changing. And it's been about 2 years since the start of that process of writing the script from my own point of view of some of the experiences that I had as a person experiencing domestic violence and not leaving because I didn't want to leave my dogs behind. There are millions of women that I found out go through the same thing and that I actually wasn't alone, even though I felt like I was alone. That's my mission for why I wrote the screenplay in the first place, is because I wanted people to find it and find themselves in a place where they realize that they are also not alone. It was a 5-year relationship that I found myself in when I was 18, and that's kind of the age I find that my dad always told me that at that age, you're the smartest you'll ever be right now. And I never understood what that meant until I got older and realized how right he was. I was the smartest that I'd ever been at that age. And what that meant to me, what that means to me now, is that I thought I knew everything. I thought, like, I got this all figured out. I know what this whole adulthood and relationships and what red flags to look for. I know all of this. I'm 18. I got it. It's not till you get older and you realize after life hands you some really sour cards that you don't have anything figured out. We're all just trying to get by day by day. But at that age, I met somebody who I was genuinely very charming at the time. And that's usually how it starts with a lot of relationships. I don't know a lot of victims of domestic violence that got into it because that person was abusive. Most of the time they put on the best version of themselves, and what's called the love bombing phase. It was something that I felt I was always missing or lacking in my own life at the time, was love and affection. So I was very susceptible to all of that love bombing and fell right into it, really. And I stayed because I got stuck in a cycle that I didn't even know that I was in. And it's really hard to get yourself out of a cycle when you are confident that you are not in a cycle. You're in a linear progression forward to a better life. In a way, I was. It just took a lot of pain, and it took my 5 minutes running up to get there. I've always said that physical abuse doesn't usually start out physical. It usually starts off with years of emotional and mental abuse. And one day, maybe in just 5 minutes' time, that time will come up. And if you're lucky, you'll get out. If you're not, I've had my own experience within that 5 minutes that I remember being eye level to the floor and remembering, like, this is how I'm going to die. And it really sucks. I remember being so mad at myself because I thought I could fight back. And I wasn't strong enough. I had always thought that I would be strong enough to fight back, and I wasn't. And it was that moment that I realized, like, this is probably the end for me, and who's going to take care of my dogs? I've been spending so much time trying to protect them from the fear that I had been facing of, like, being afraid to leave, that I didn't even think about what would they do if I physically have just unsubscribed from life by not my choice. So I left that night. My 5 minutes came up and somehow I got out of it, and I left. And I didn't know what the next day was going to look like for me or the day after. I didn't know what the next minute would look like. And I had to just learn that that was okay. I had to learn that first, that it was okay to just not know and it's okay to be afraid sometimes. It's just, you have to keep going forward. And that's what I did. And it took still some months and years of healing to fully separate myself away from the trauma and the abuse that occurred throughout the entire relationship with that abuser. Once that I learned that it was okay to be afraid of what might happen tomorrow or what may not happen tomorrow, that the next step was learning that it's okay to take up that space that I had been so afraid of taking up for years because of, well, he's had a bad day, I don't want to make it worse, or it's been a really good day, I don't want to ruin it. I don't want to be the one responsible for ruining that. So this is a part of why I'm doing this. Because every woman out there, every victim out there deserves to take up space. Every person that's like me or like my dog deserves to have that space. They deserve to feel okay. And if this is that inspiration that they need and the kick in the pants that they need to feel that and feel like it's okay to be okay. It's okay to not be okay, and it's okay to not feel sure or certain of your next tomorrow or your next moves. It's okay, but just keep going. You need to. For yourself, for your dogs. Because all of you and your dogs are counting on you. My trauma or my experiences in domestic abuse, I didn't even feel comfortable saying that I was a victim of domestic violence. It didn't feel right for me to claim that title when other people, I felt like, oh, other people have had it worse, so I'm not a victim. And that's not true. It took me years to find out that wasn't true. I didn't even learn I was a victim until I became a survivor. It wasn't really until I started telling people about this movie, because my trauma, it started to move away from a place of shame, and it started to move toward this place of pride and progress, of taking dirt and mud and planting flowers there and making something beautiful from something that felt so scarring, and sharing that with other people as I've gone through my everyday life, meeting new people, talking, catching up with old friends, and hey, what have you been up to? And just telling them, like, yeah, I'm making this movie. It's a dog's perspective on domestic violence and how that both affects the dogs and the women, but it's told from the heart of a dog. And I get so many responses where just telling information like that, just telling them, I'm making this movie and this is what it's about, has got so many women to open up to me. And it's created that topic of conversation that would have otherwise never been on the table. Because how many times do you come up to someone and it's like, hey, how have you been doing? Oh, not great. I'm a victim of domestic abuse. It doesn't happen that often. People feel like it's taboo to talk about, especially when you're just trying to like have small talk and catch up. And I want to change that narrative with this movie. And this is a way of doing that, because this movie is something positive. It's something that makes people feel good, but it addresses something very serious, and it brings that conversation to the table where people feel open and brave enough to say, hey, I went through the same thing. And some women have said, I've never gone through that, but I couldn't imagine what it would feel like to not know where I'm going to bring my dog because they're not safe in my own home. And they really resonate with that, or they know somebody. In reality, it's about 1 in every 4 women who become a victim of domestic abuse, and out of that, it's 70% of them have a dog. That's a lot of people. That's 10 million people in America a year.